Hi again, friends. It's Sharon from Mad Paper Crush here. And this week we are going to be making this adorable little field notes booklet that you could make for your dad for Father's Day, or for someone who is a dad to your kids or in your life, or someone that you would like to give this to. So let me just take you through what we're going to be doing with this, and then we'll make it together. All right, friends, we're going to do a quick little flip through of this field notes before we make it. I hope that you'll give this video a thumbs up for me. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, I hope that you'll do that so that you can be notified of when I have new videos that come out. So here is the field notes booklet. And I am going to take the elastic off. This is the closure that we have. And when you open it up, there is a pocket on the inside that you can put some ephemera in. And these are included, these pieces are included in the kit that you can use, as well as this. This is another piece of ephemera that I've used as a decoration. And then I have two little inserts in here that are just plain for taking notes or maybe scheduling things, and they are included in elastic. So I have them in elastics here. And then I also made a second one to go in to the other side here. So there's two little inserts that you could change out as you needed to. And then in the back, I have just a small little pocket where you could tuck a business card or a little picture of your kids or something like that right into here. So I have a little bit more ephemera that I have included in the kit in the back here. And that is our little field notes for Dad. So let's get going. So here's the kit I'm going to be using. It's called Field Notes for Dad, and I just wanted to do a little flip through of the pages that are included in the kit. So the first one here has the cover piece, plus I was trying to fill in the pages as much as I could, so I tried to get some ephemera wherever there was space left. And then this is part of the inside cover, and this will be a pocket on the outside cover. And then we have more of the inside cover pages and some more ephemera here. You can see these are some comedy posters that I thought were fun. My dad always likes to laugh, and so seeing fun things like that always makes me think of the times that I joked around and laughed with my dad. And then there's a motorcycle advertisement here and a fish here that I just thought was fun. And then this page is the page that includes the cover for the insert. So the little notebook that's going to go inside our cover piece, this is what I'll be using for that. Plus a little tag with some birds on it there and a parcel post sticker. And then these pages, the next pages, there's some pockets that can be used. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to use them all, but pockets that can be used, you know, anywhere inside the journal or on the outside cover if you would like. Excuse me. And then some pages. So I wanted to have some pages, and I'm sure I'll add just other tea-dyed papers and, you know, different papers that I have, but I loved some of these notebook papers that I found in some field notes books and things like that. So there's this one that kind of has a graph, which is probably hard to see on camera, but this one's a light little graph paper there. And then this one, there are two little medallions with clocks on them that I thought were fun. And then this paper has a lined image on it, another pocket to use, some more ephemera, a day's fishing. Lots of dads like to fish, I think, and probably moms too. And then this one, this is a lined piece of paper that has some numbers, some old numbers on the side that I thought was really neat. So I wanted to use that one. And then a music page called My Dad's the Engineer. And then a little picture of a guy headbutting a soccer ball, vintage soccer ball there. So I thought that was fun. And then the last page in the kit is actually a backside page that you could use to print on the backside. So for these, I printed on the backside so that I wouldn't have to do any distressing or anything once I get them cut out and ready to go. So let's get going and use this kit to make our field notes for Dad. Okay, for the cover, the outside cover of our field notes, we're going to need the pages in the kit that have the cover piece and then also the one that has the inside cover pieces there. So those are just the 2 pages that you're going to need for the first part of this. So I'm going to cut out these 3 pieces and then these 2 pieces to get started with. And then we're also going to need some sort of base for the cover. So you could use anything you want. I am using packaging, a piece of packaging that's pretty sturdy, because I want the outside to hold up to being able to put those inserts in and out and things like that. So you could use cardstock. You could use a file folder. There's certainly a lot of other things that you could use here. I'm just telling you I'm going to use this because it's going to be sturdy enough. Now, this is also not as heavy as like the chipboard I normally use, which I think is like 1/8 of an inch thick. And this is, excuse me, probably a 1/16 of an inch. Or maybe even a little smaller. I don't know, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, but that's what I'm going to use for mine. And then I'll be using my cutter to cut things out. I'm going to be using some glue, and I'll probably be using a variety of glues. I may even use my tacky glue for some of this. So as we get going, I'll show you what glues I'll be using there. And probably my scissors. I'm going to be using my craft knife to do some scoring on this card to help it fold a little bit better for me. I may be using my corner rounder. I may just be using my scissors to cut corners. I'm not sure if this will work great on this, but I just wanted to let you know, if you have a corner rounder, you could certainly use it. Scissors work, just as well there too. And then the last thing I'm going to be using, well, besides my distressing, because I probably going to be distressing some of the edges of things before we go, I'm going to be using this masking paper. So this is like very thin paper that I got at a home goods store or like a hardware store. For painters, I think, use it to mask place office to protect, from paint drips and things like that. So this is very, very thin. But because of the coloring on this packaging, I want to cover it because I don't want the blue to show. It doesn't really match too well with the colors I have going on in my kit there. So I'm going to be using this, but you could paint this, you could gesso it, you could do a lot of other things to sort of remove any pattern or whatever you have on your cardboard. Or if you're lucky enough to have a piece of cardboard that just has 2 sides, that are plain, you could just distress the edges and that would work great. I kind of wish I did have that, but I do not. So I'm going to be using the paper as an alternative. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to cut out those pieces and we'll get going. Okay, I've cut out my paper pieces. Well, almost completely. I guess I missed this one a little bit here. But I've got my pieces cut out. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut the cardboard. So to cut the cardboard, I want to use the cover as a template so that I know I'm getting the right size. The other thing that I wanted to mention is because this is, an actual Field Notes cover, there might be some white space if you cut a straight line. So I'm going to go in and use some Distress ink just to hide that white, the little white that you might see there. But before I do that, I am going to grab a pencil and I'm going to trace this so that when I cut my cardstock, it's going to be the size that I want it to be. So I'm just going to hold it down and give myself a tracing line. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and cut that out, and I'm probably going to use my craft knife for the straight edges to get this cut out. So if you've ever cut card like this before, you just have to hold your ruler in place where you want it, and then you have to make sure that you use several firm strokes to get through everything. So just push down real hard and until you get your piece that comes off there. So I'm going to do that all the way around, and then I will cut my edges, my corners as well. Okay, I have my cover cardstock here ready to go. So you can see that these, you know, these match up. So the next thing I want to do is I want to score my cover so that I know where all the places are that it's going to bend when we put our cover papers on. So all I'm going to do that is I'm going to take my cover, and it is 7.5 inches wide. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark, I want to take a 1/2 inch out of the middle. So to do that, I first need to find my center, which should be 3.5 inches. Oh, that doesn't look right, does it? Oh, because it's 7.5, so 3 3¾ inches is my center mark. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark 1/4 inch lines on either side of that center mark to give me my 1/2 inch line. So I'm going to mark it at 3.5, and I'm going to mark it at 4. And I'm going to do that in 2 places on my cardstock. So I'm going to mark it at 4 and mark it at 3.5 so that I know where my score lines are going to be. And I am going to do the same thing on both sides of this card because I do want to have a crease or a score mark on both sides. So I'm just going to mark my 2 lines here, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. All right, so now when I look at them, they should be pretty close to the same on both sides, and hopefully they are the same. Now to score this, all I'm going to do is I'm going to use my craft knife, and along those lines that I just made on both sides, I'm going to make a very light score mark, just enough to cut maybe the very top layer of my cardstock. So I'm going to find the line that I made because I want it to go right on that same line. And then I'm going to hold it still and just do a light score mark right down there. And you should be able to, you know, feel it. And all I've done is cut that first layer of this cardboard. And then I'm going to do that on the other 3 lines as well. Okay, now we have our score marks. You can decide which side you want to be sort of the outside of the field notes or the inside. Now, because I really want this pattern to be hidden, I think I'm going to use this as my outside cover. So just so there's really no chance that that blue is going to be showing on the outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over and make my folds to come in. And I'm just going to use my ruler here as a guide, and I'm doing this very gently. I don't want to, you know, do it too quick that I might actually tear through something. But now you can see I can kind of make sure I got my folds good in there. All right, and so there is our outside cover ready to go. Okay, now after you've folded it so we know where our lines are, I'm going to flatten this back out again because I'm going to cover it with my paper. So I want this to be as flat as possible so that I can cover it well. And for this one, I am going to use my glue stick here, and I'm just going to grab another piece of that paper to glue my edges on so I don't get glue everywhere. And I'm going to put glue all over, but I'm going to really make sure I get my edges around here as well so that it stays down while I fold things over. Okay. A little bit of glue there. Now I'm just going to put this on over top. And I'm going to use my bone folder. You could use a credit card here just to make sure everything is nice and adhered down with the least amount of wrinkles as possible. Looks like I missed these corners a little bit. So I'm just going to go back in and make sure I got those good. Now, if you notice like me that you have a little bubble, where did my, oh, you can take your craft knife and just put a little hole in it. So that it will, oops, stay down for you. Okay, so now we have that covered. I am going to cut the whole thing down, giving myself maybe 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch all the way around. And so you can see, it doesn't cover it up completely, but since these are going to be covered as well, I'm going to be okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue doing this. Now, normally for when I cover board like this, I would cut the corners out, but because this is a rounded corner, I'm going to leave them on. And I'm only going to cut the corners just a little bit off like this. But that's the only thing I'm going to cut off. I'm going to leave the rest of the paper intact because I'm going to fold around those corners. Now, I will say if you're using a different paper besides this masking paper, this may not work the way that I'm going to do this because heavier paper is going to bunch up in the corners a little bit more. This paper is very, very thin, and so wrapping around the corner is going to work the way that I want it to for this piece. So I'm going to grab another piece of this here so that I don't get glue all over everything. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually, and this is another thing that normally I would cover, you know, opposite sides first, but because I'm doing the corner, I'm going to do two adjacent sides. So we're going to go down one corner, or one side, excuse me, and put a bunch of glue on there. And we're going to cover it up to and close to the corner. And then I'm going to put glue on this side. Same thing, up to and close to the corner. And I'm just going to make sure I have enough in there to glue this down. And then I'm going to come in from the other direction. And I'm going to glue this down. And then when I get to the corner, I'm just going to sort of massage my fingers in there to create that rounded edge that I want. And I could probably cut off some of this bulk if I wanted to. Once you got it to here, you could probably cut a little bit of that off. But because this is so thin, I don't think it will even matter. So now you can see for my one side, I have a nice curved corner there. So I'm just going to do the same thing going around in my circle here. I'm going to, I think I'm only going to go halfway so that I don't have this issue. fold this in. And then once I get to the corner, I'm just going to make sure, and this is where you could cut off some of this bulk if you wanted to, but like I said, this is so thin that I don't even really need to. I'm just gonna fold that down however it goes there. Because remember, we're gonna be covering this as well, so. All right, so now let's do the next corner. Once you get to the last corners, you kind of need to do them together so that you can get glue in there. Okay, now, if there's anything sticking up, I am going to cut it off. So like this piece here, just so I don't have a lot of bulk when I go to add my cover to it. And the other thing that I might do is I may take my my art glitter glue and go in and make sure if there are any flaps that are up, I'm gonna use my art glitter glue to make sure that they are nice and secured and down. So because this has a small little tip, it makes it easy to get into those little places that might not have glue on them. So I'm just gonna go around and in all the corners, just do that. Feel if there's any places that are lifting up. Actually, this one I could probably cut off a little. And then use my glitter glue to glue the rest of it down. And my next step is to distress all around on both sides. So I just want to be sure, grab that piece of paper again so I don't get this all over my board. I'm just going to make sure all my edges are nice and distressed. And this will do a little bit too on the opposite side when I'm doing it to help cover up more of that color and pattern as well. Okay, cover is all distressed and ready to go. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to start gluing on our papers. So I did, for my cover papers, I did go around and give them some distress so that I don't have to do that later. And I am going to start with the inside, and we're going to start with the middle piece to cover here. So I'm going to glue this down, but I want my cover to be as flat as possible so that my cover papers won't pull when I have them turned up. Now, before I glue this down, I am going to, or while I glue this down, I'm going to glue this down in 3 steps. First, I'm going to glue the middle because I don't really want to put glue on my creases. I kind of want to leave that free. So I'm going to put the middle down. And we're gonna glue just in the middle, trying not to get our creases glued, which is easier said than done for me. I'm just putting lines right inside there. And then I'm going to center my middle piece over that center and make sure I have it lined up at the top and bottom. which I did not. And then we're going to, I want to let that dry. I don't want to start folding this or putting the other sides down until this is good and dry, so that I know when I put my creases in, things aren't going to move around. So I'm going to let that go until it dries, which will be a couple minutes. Okay, we're back. The middle is nice and dry. My sides are not put down yet. And now we're going to fold again to kind of get the creases in the paper where we want them, so I know where to glue next. So I'm just going to use my ruler again, find the crease, and then once I kind of have it creased there, I am going to just kind of give it a soft fold with my fingers so I kind of know where those are. Now we're going to glue each side down, and I'm going to put my glue on the flap itself and then put it down. I'm going to try to keep my glue away from the crease because I want that part to be free so that it can bend. So I'm not putting my glue real close to the inner edge, but we'll make sure the outer edge and the top and the bottom are pretty good. And then once again, we want to make sure it's flat. I'm going to make sure that crease is nice and creased. And then we're going to glue that down flat. And once again, I'm just going to leave it. I don't want it to move around until it is glued in place there. And then we'll do the other side the same thing. And then let's give this another couple minutes to dry, and I'll be right back. Okay, our middle piece is all dry. So now I'm just going to gently turn the sides up to get the paper started in terms of training it to go where we want it to go. So I'm just trying to make sure, oops, oh, there we go, that it is. Actually, I think I'm going to use like an old credit card or something here, just to make sure I have these creases done well. And there we go. So now that's all ready to go. And I'm going to, before I do the side panels, because we want to, you know, do the side panels, I think I'm going to do the back side. I'm going to do the front cover here. So I'm just going to put this down. And right now there's no right side up or upside down, which is good. And I'm just going to make sure this fits on there the way that I think it's going to. And we're just going to glue the entire thing down. And I think this time I'm going to use my 3-in-1 glue for this. I want to be able to spread it around. And I'm not sure if I mentioned before, but I printed all of these pieces, the cover pieces, the inside and outside cover pieces, on presentation paper, not just regular paper. The other parts of the kit I did just print on regular copy paper or printer paper, but this one I wanted to be just a little bit thicker, so these are on presentation paper. I think they print nice and it makes a nice cover, and inside, you know, it's a little bit thicker than just having a regular piece of paper down there. Okay, so once we got that on, I'm just going to use my finger a little bit to spread this around so that we don't have any bumps. And then I'm going to take my cover that we're building here, and I'm going to set this on as close to the edge as I can. And then I'm going to turn it over and make sure I've got it down pretty well here. It looks like I might have been a little bit off, but it's not showing, so that's good. And then I'm going to take my bone folder, or credit card. And once again, just really make sure I burnish this down so that it is sticking everywhere. And then we'll give this a minute to dry as well so that we can put the creases in the outside. Okay, so while that's drying, I'm gonna go ahead and prepare my inside pages. So I think I want to put this pocket on the side, one side of the inside there. And because I printed this on printer paper, I do want to kind of thicken this up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my glue stick here, and I'm going to back this with a piece of book page so that it has a little bit more weight to it when we fold everything over and make it into a pocket. So I'm just going to put this down on here. And that'll help bulk that up just a little bit. We'll put that aside to dry. And then on this side, I'm going to use this piece to make a little tuck spot. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little notch in this. So I'm going to find the middle of it and probably use a pencil because you know me, I need to measure stuff. It looks like this is about, what size is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. So half of 5.5 is 2 3/4. But if I do it this way, I should be able to get my half. Let's see, 1, 2.5 should be about right here. And then I'm going to use my 1-inch hole punch to create just a small little notch here. And then I'll distress over that. I kind of had already distressed, but I think I'd like a little notch in there just so that it's obvious that it's a little place to tuck things into. Just like that. Now, you can either glue this or you could sew it, either one. I think I'm just going to glue this, which is not like me, but I think I just want to have this be kind of a plain, untextured journal or notebook, as the case may be. I'm trying to keep my glue just right on the edge there. And I'm just going to place this down right on the edge. And then we'll let that dry. Now that this has been on here, I think I can probably go ahead and cut this off and start getting this ready. So I'm just going to cut around this again. Okay, we've got this cut out, and actually my cutter didn't do so good on this side, so I'm just going to trim this up a little bit. And since this is, we're going to fold in each of the edge on the little distress line there. So I might get out my scoreboard to kind of make those scores so they're a little bit easier to do. So I'm just going to line them up on one of these marks here. And make a little crease. and then fold these in. Okay, so this pocket's ready to go, and I'm going to put it on this one. But before I do that, I'm going to add a little bit more distress to this, especially since the cutout didn't have any on there. And after you've folded in the edges to put this on, we just need to add glue to our 3 sides, and then we can place that right on there. And then this will be perfect for some ephemera to go right in there. So we'll let that dry, let this dry a little bit, and now our cover should be dry. Let's go ahead and start to bend this again. So we want to train our outer cover to bend. And I'm just going to use my fingers. And once again, this was printed on presentation paper. So it has, like I said, it's not as light as regular copy paper. And I think we've got it going there. Okay. Looking good. So now we have a nice spine that we're going to be putting our eyelets into to hold our inner pockets and to do our closure on. Okay, before we put our inside pages on, I am going to punch my holes for the eyelets. So we have our middle piece of paper down, which is what we need for covering. So we can go ahead and punch these holes. I'm going to be using my Crop-A-Dile for this, and I'm going to be using these 1/8 inch eyelets for this. So I'm going to be using the smaller hole. So I'm going to go ahead and mark these holes, and I'm going to use my my white pencil to do that. And what I want to do is I want to measure, first of all, a middle point, because that's what I'm going to be putting my closure on. We're going to be putting an elastic closure through the middle. I'm going to center this between, it's not quite 6 inches tall. This cover is about 5 3/4 inches tall. So I'm centering it between the 6 inch lines so that I can easily just come in 3 inches to get my center. So now let me grab my ruler so I can put this middle point right on the center line. So this will be, and I'm kind of lining it up in between the 2 creases that I have. So that'll be my center hole for the eyelet for my closure. And then the other thing I want to do is I'm going to put, you could just do 1 hole at each side to make 1 elastic go through. I'm going to do 2 holes in a line on each side to make 2 elastics so that I can put 2 inserts into here. So I'm going to keep it lined up. And then what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to put the first one, actually, I'm not going to keep it lined up. I'm going to put it on my lines because I want the first eyelet to be at least a 1/2 inch down from the top. So that's where I'm putting the first one, a 1/2 inch down. And then we'll put the second one a 1/2 inch away from that one. So we're putting our eyelets a 1/2 inch away from each other on both sides. All right, so now we have all of our holes ready to go, and I will be using 5 of the same eyelet here. So I'm going to take my Crop-A-Dile and put it on my 1/8 of an inch punch there, and then line these up and punch my 5 holes. Okay, now that I have my 5 holes, I can put my eyelets in them, and I'm just using these small 1/8 of an inch brown eyelets, And all I'm gonna do is set up my crocodile. You've probably seen me do this before, to the settings for the small ones. And I think it is, oops, C and 3. So I gotta find 3, there's 3. And then all you do is you put your eyelet in the hole, and I want the nice edge on the outside. And then we will put this in the crocodile, make sure it's lined up, and give it a press. And I'm gonna do all 5 of them. Oops. You have to make sure your crocodile is back out to the eyelet setting stage though, which mine was not. All right, and then we're gonna keep doing the rest of them. Okay, we have our eyelets all put in here. And if you don't have the tools to do an eyelet and set an eyelet, you can just take your elastic and put it around here and just tie it together. That will work just the same to be able to put in your inserts into here. So you do have an option if you don't have the eyelet setter to do it the way that I'm going to do it. So now what I did was I cut a piece of elastic that was a little bit bigger than 2 times this board, because it's going to basically be going around, you know, twice here. So I wanted to have a little bit longer so that I can tie it at the end. Now how I'm going to thread this through is I'm going to start with one of the lower holes on one of the sides. So from inside to outside, I'm going through that lower hole, and then I'm coming back through the upper hole. And then I'm just going to kind of pull that through a little bit so that I have a nice long end here to work with. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that end and go through the upper hole on the other side, or the outer hole on the other side, and then in through the inner hole on the other side. So then when I tie these 2 together, and I'm going to try to tie them together on the same side, I don't really want them crossing over too much, I will be able to put in my inserts. Now you can see here we only have, you know, 2 little loops showing, which is what I wanted, kind of a minimal amount on the outside. And when I tie them together, I'm not going to pull them super tight, but I am going to make them snug. So I don't want real loose elastics here. I just want to pull them snug so that they will hold in and insert just right. So now once I get it to where I want it, see if I can do this with 2 hands here. And then I'm just going to pull this elastic really tight to make sure that it stays. And I may even put one more loop in there. And then we'll cut these down. And I'm going to leave just a little end on there for safekeeping, but not too much. So, all right, so now our elastics are ready to go, and we can finish gluing in our pages. So now that we have our inner pages all nice and dry with the pockets and things that we want on them, I'm going to make sure I have it right side up, because that would have been a bummer if I would have glued them on wrong. And then I'm just going to glue these pages down to the outside edges of each of the sides. So, and I am probably going to use my 3-in-1 glue, my Beacon 3-in-1 glue for this. And I'm going to make sure I get good coverage towards the ends and glue them down. Okay, now we're going to do the closure. So for the closure, what I want to do is have a piece of elastic that comes out here in a loop so that you can just pull the elastic over the field notes to have them stay closed. So I've cut another piece of elastic, the same color as the inside elastic, and I have cut enough so that it will double one side with some extra for a knot. Now I'm going to put this through, but what's going to happen, or what I don't want to happen, is I don't want these to pull out. Since I'm putting both ends through the one hole that we made here for the closure, I want to be sure that the knot that I make doesn't pull out. So once I get this through, I'm going to take a 3/8 eyelet that I have, just a regular 3/8 eyelet. It can be any, color or whatever that you want. And I'm going to crimp it in my Crop-A-Dile onto nothing so that it creates just like a flat little disc. So I'm using my 3/8 inch settings, and I'm going to just crimp this down so that it's a nice flat disc all by itself there. Because then I'm going to use this to help be sure that our knot doesn't pull through the middle hole there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the eyelet over one side of the elastic there, and then I'm going to tie a double knot around that so that if it decides to pull a little, it won't pull through the hole. So I'm trying to make sure I give enough room on the outside for it to close around. So I'm trying to keep my ends fairly short as I tie my double knot here. Let's see if I can do that. Okay, so I have a nice double knot on there. And so you can see when it pulls, my disc should hopefully lay flat in the middle here, or close to flat anyway. And then when I want to close my field notes, I can easily pull this out and around and not have to worry about my knot coming through that hole here. Okay, our last step is to make our insert, and I went ahead and cut out the cover. And now I didn't print on the back side of this one, but I just used some distress inks to take the white off of that. So once you get that cut out, you can fold that up. And then I cut out some of my other ones, so you can see those here. I cut out a bunch of them. So I have graph paper on one side and the numbers on the other side, and lined papers and graph paper and all those. And I've just cut them out, and I've added in a couple of extra papers. So I just have some coffee dyed paper here cut down to size. And I've also included a couple of these small ledger sheets that I've folded to size here, and then just, folded the other side as a flap over there. So I'm going to use all of these to actually make 2 inserts. So I would recommend about 5 pages on the inside of each insert. So you have this one, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say. And then I will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for my other insert. And I probably will just use a different cardstock or paper for the cover of this one, just to have, something different. You could certainly make 2 of the same. And then just like any other signature, you would put them together however you want them here. And I'm just going to do this for example here. I will put everything together kind of how I want them. And then you could either do sew it using a pamphlet stitch. A 3-hole pamphlet stitch on here would work just fine. Or you could just run it through your sewing machine right down the middle there, which I think is what I'm going to do. You could even just put, you know, staples in the edges there, just something so you have them all together. Now, the other thing that I want to do before I finish this up is round all my corners. So some of the papers that I have, I didn't round the corners yet. So I am going to go through and round all my corners. And I may even just make sure that, you know, I don't have these sticking out too much here. I may just kind of trim some of those inside ones down a little bit. And then we'll have these all ready to go. So I'm going to go do that and I'll be right back. All right, friends, I finished up my 2 little inserts. This is the one that came in the kit. And as you can see, I just used my sewing machine to sew everything together, and I rounded all the corners of all the pages that I had in there. And then I made this one just out of some scrapbook paper that had already been coffee dyed on the inside. And I added a little sticker to the front of it, but they're both the same size, and I like how they're a little bit different. So you could maybe use one for notes and one for scheduling, or, you know, something like that. So then the last thing to do was to cut out my ephemera, which I did. And I added an eyelet with a ribbon to the bird tag that I have. And I put some of the ephemera together on a little index card for the front pocket there. I added one of the clocks to the front pocket. So these go in here just like that. And then I can put these in the back, but before I put those in, I'm going to put my inserts in. So I'm going to grab the tall elastic to first put in one of them. So this will be there on one side. And then for the second one, I'm just going to grab the short elastic. And this one, you just have to kind of wiggle it in because it is a little bit shorter. It will stretch out, but you kind of have to wiggle it in there a little bit. And then I'm just going to make sure it is kind of centered here without going through the paper. And then you can see I have my 2 little signatures in here. And then I can put my ephemera that I want in here, whatever pieces you decide fit for you. And then when you close it, you can take your elastic and put it right around the front there. And there you have it, Field Notes for Dad. Okay, friends, there you have it, Field Notes for Dad. And I am going to be putting this digital kit into my Etsy store, and I will link it down below if you would like to check it out. But if you leave me a comment down below and let me know something you love about your father, about your husband who may be the father of your children, or who is the stepfather for your children, or someone in your life who is a father figure for either you or for your children. If you put a comment down below letting me know one thing you love about that person who is dad in your life, I will enter you into a giveaway to get this kit for free. And I'm going to pick a couple of names to get the kit for free so that you can make your own field notes for that wonderful person in your life who is dad either to you or to someone that you care about. So I hope that you'll do that. And next week we'll be picking some winners. So thanks a lot, friends. Thanks for watching. I hope that you would give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. And I will see you in the next video. Take care, friends.